What if your dream home became worthless overnight? Not because of the market, but because the ocean took it back. Florida, the so-called Sunshine State, is staring down that nightmare. Sea levels here are already 8 inches higher than in 1950, and scientists warn they could climb another 5 to 7 feet by 2100. That's over 1 million homes facing chronic flooding. Entire neighborhoods transformed into ghost towns underwater. In just the past 5 years, hurricanes have left behind more than $100 billion in destruction. If storms can already wipe out an entire state budget in a heartbeat, what happens when seas keep rising? Florida's leaders are now scrambling with an insane $10 billion mega plan, erecting seawalls like steel jaws, hoisting roads and homes into the sky, and reviving swamps as nature's last defense. But can humanity really outbuild the ocean, or is this a desperate countdown before nature collects the final rent? And if Florida needs billions to survive, what does that mean for New York, New Orleans, or even your own town? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. Let's discover this crazy $10 billion plan together. Drowning Florida. Florida isn't just sinking in headlines, it's literally sinking beneath our feet. Picture this. You wake up one morning, shuffle outside in your slippers, and instead of finding your driveway, you're staring at a puddle that wasn't there yesterday. Since 1950, sea levels here have risen almost 8 inches, but what makes it truly bone-chilling is the acceleration. Around Miami, the water now climbs roughly an inch every 3 years. That's not science fiction, that's your backyard turning into a swimming pool on Mother Nature's schedule. NASA experts predict another 10 to 12 inches by 2050. Basically, 3 decades will deliver the same punishment it once took a full century to unleash. And in worst-case projections, try 7 feet by the end of this century. 7 feet isn't just a soggy sidewalk, it's entire neighborhoods erased like chalk drawings before a summer storm. On Florida's pancake-flat terrain, even a small rise becomes a disaster multiplier. A couple of inches can morph quiet cul-de-sacs into mosquito breeding grounds, or playgrounds into soggy marshes where swings rust and slide. Rails stick out like abandoned skeletons. Miami Beach already spends tens of millions each year running pumps 24 hours a day, just to keep the streets drivable. Imagine paying taxes not for schools or healthcare, but for giant vacuums fighting an ocean that laughs at your electricity bill. Saltwater intrusion cracks concrete, corrodes pipes, and leaves once fresh wells tasting like brine. It's not just a nuisance, it's the ocean sneakily repossessing the land, deed by deed. For everyday Floridians, this isn't some academic graph tucked in a government report. It's water in the garage, water in the streets, water in the very thought of their children's future. The sea used to be a view, blue horizon, family fishing trips, a place for Sunday barbecues. Now it lurks like a predator pacing the edge of the yard, inching closer with every tide. And the question that nobody dares to voice at the dinner table is the one that haunts the state. What if Florida's fight against the sea is already lost, and we're just paying rent to the ocean until eviction day comes? Homes on borrowed time. Forget Hollywood disaster movies. Florida's flood maps already sketch out a slow-motion apocalypse. Vast swaths of the state perch barely above sea level, a cruel design flaw that makes even a heavy rainstorm feel like a dress rehearsal for evacuation. Within the next 30 years, around 64,000 Florida homes are projected to flood every other week. Not once in a decade, not even once a year. Every other week. Picture retirees in Tampa taping down sandbags twice a month, or families in Miami swishing through knee-deep water just to get the kids to school. By 2100, over 1 million homes, housing several million people, maybe chronically inundated, neighborhoods permanently marinated in seawater like forgotten pickles in a jar. The numbers are staggering, but the images are worse. Think of the Florida Keys, where pastel cottages once stood as postcards of paradise, now penciled into the federal flood risk charts as doomed real estate. Miami's skyline may glitter, but its basements are already surrendering to groundwater. Tampa's suburbs, once cheap and cheerful, are forecasted to sit under waterlogged lawns and moldy drywall. A federal study found that Florida alone makes up 90% of the Southeast's potential storm surge damages as seas rise. A single state carrying nearly the entire region's burden like an unlucky gambler who lost every hand. The nightmare isn't abstract, it's waiting in the mailbox. Insurance premiums skyrocket, property values nosedive, and retirement dreams curdle into relocation plans. When your home becomes a line on a flood map, it stops feeling like ownership and starts feeling like you're just renting from the ocean. Rent that comes due in salt water. And the bitterest irony? The tide doesn't knock politely, it barges in and it never leaves. Storms above, ground below. Florida isn't just fighting water from the sky and sea, it's being attacked from every direction like a boxer cornered in the final round. Warming oceans act like steroid shots for hurricanes, supercharging storms into monsters with names Floridians will never forget. Hurricane Michael in 2018 leveled entire towns with winds topping 155 miles per hour. Then came Ian in 2022, ripping across the Gulf Coast and drowning neighborhoods under walls of water 15 feet high. Together, these and other climate disasters have racked up over $100 billion in damages in Florida within just 5 years. That's not a typo. That's the equivalent of erasing the entire state budget twice. The fallout reaches wallets long before it reaches shorelines. In 2023 alone, insurance rates in Florida jumped by 35%, driving families to choose between paying premiums or paying rent. For retirees on fixed incomes, it feels like trying to buy safety with monopoly money. But storms are only half the curse. Beneath Florida lies a bedrock of porous limestone, more sponge than stone. Seawater doesn't politely stay at the shore. It seeps up from below, silently undermining foundations, corroding pipes, and opening sinkholes that swallow cars and homes without warning. Traditional defenses like levees and seawalls are useless against water sneaking in from the ground itself, a geographical betrayal unique to Florida. So the nightmare isn't just waves crashing overhead, it's the ground literally caving in under your feet. When the battlefield is both above and below, what chance does a neighborhood really stand? Everglades revival. If Florida's geography is a nightmare, then the Everglades are its lifeline, a sprawling river of grass that once stretched like a green lung across the southern half of the state. For decades, engineers chopped it up with canals, drained its marshes, and paved over its wetlands in the name of progress. But now, in a twist that feels almost poetic, Florida is betting its survival on giving nature back her job. At the heart of this gamble lies the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, a $10.5 billion, 35-year undertaking that aims to re-engineer the very way water flows across South Florida. It's not just a project, it's the largest hydrologic restoration effort in U.S. history, a kind of environmental open-heart surgery performed on a living landscape. The blueprint is bold. Thousands of acres of wetlands will be revived, rivers reconnected, and the once throttled floodplains allowed to breathe again. Instead of walls of concrete, Florida is investing in marshes that act like nature's sponges, soaking up storm surges and slowly releasing clean water back into aquifers. Those aquifers in turn supply drinking water to more than 8 million Floridians. In other words, fixing the Everglades isn't just about saving birds and alligators, it's about safeguarding the glass of water on your kitchen table. The symbolism is striking, undoing decades of human misengineering so that Mother Nature can be the contractor of resilience. And yet the question lingers in the air. Can undoing our past mistakes keep pace with the accelerating future of climate chaos? Fortress coastlines. If the Everglades revival is Florida's back to nature strategy, then the seawalls and surge gates are its iron-fisted backup plan. Here, concrete and steel become the new mangroves, standing in place of nature's buffers to keep billions of gallons of seawater at bay. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is leading the charge with proposals that sound like something lifted straight out of a dystopian blueprint. Their flagship idea, a $4.6 billion storm surge barrier system for Miami-Dade. Imagine it, a giant set of steel jaws, gates so massive they could shut off the ocean itself, slamming down at inlets whenever a hurricane threatens to send a wall of water into downtown Miami. But Miami isn't alone on the blueprint. Broward County, the Florida Keys, and even Tampa Bay are slated for their own fortified defenses. Elevated sea walls will rise like battlements along shorelines, reshaping waterfronts once built for leisure into militarized landscapes built for survival. For residents, this isn't just city planning. It's a transformation of the very character of Florida's coast. Places once defined by open views of the horizon may soon be framed by towering slabs of concrete, a reminder that the ocean is no longer a neighbor but an adversary at the gate. The scale is breathtaking, but so is the controversy. These defenses may hold back storm surges, but they also wall off ecosystems, disrupt tidal flows, and cost staggering sums in maintenance. Critics whisper the dreaded word boondoggle, while supporters argue survival demands radical measures. Florida is betting that fortress walls can keep the wolves of climate change at bay. The question is whether these bulwarks are shields of salvation or monuments to desperation. Cities on stilts. Florida's answer to rising seas isn't to run, it's to rise. Across the state, communities are treating elevation like a new civic religion, lifting roads, houses, and even entire neighborhoods to stay one step ahead of the tide. In the Florida Keys, where the overseas highway acts as a lifeline, officials have mapped out a jaw-dropping $3 billion plan to raise 4,700 homes and elevate long stretches of roadway so the island chain doesn't become a string of stranded outposts. Monroe County alone estimates that simply elevating its most vulnerable roads will cost $1.8 billion. A bill so steep it makes locals joke that asphalt has become more expensive than beachfront property. Miami Beach, meanwhile, has become the poster child of urban self-resurrection. With a $500 million project already underway, the city is literally jacking up streets by several feet, threading in powerful pumps to push out seawater that bubbles up during sunny day tidal flooding. Locals complain about awkward driveways and flooded garages as the city lifts asphalt higher than their front doors. But the gamble is clear: either raise the ground or let the ocean own it. The strategy doesn't stop with mega projects. Under the state's Resilient Florida funding program, dozens of smaller municipalities are installing sturdier seawalls, upgrading storm drains, and even designing flood parks, green spaces that double as reservoirs when storms hit. Imagine playgrounds that turn into shallow lakes during a surge, holding back water like temporary bathtubs before draining out again. It's a vision of Florida on stilts, a place where survival means building above the threat rather than beside it. But the question lingers with every billion-dollar blueprint: how long can a city keep rising before the price becomes heavier than the water itself? The players in the clock. A $10 billion adaptation plan isn't the work of one agency or one governor. It's a patchwork quilt stitched together by every level of power Florida can muster. On the engineering front, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers holds the blueprints for the big iron fixes: surge barriers, seawalls, and storm gates that would make downtown Miami look more like a fortress than a beach town. Florida's Department of Environmental Protection is doling out millions in grants to cities, helping them plan and pay for resilience projects that would otherwise drown under local tax burdens. Then there are the water management districts, quiet but essential, managing canals and flowways like veins that keep South Florida's lifeblood moving. Local governments remain on the front lines. Mayors and commissioners who must explain to their voters why a new seawall now means fewer police hires later. But the cast extends beyond government. Scientists push for mangrove forests, coral reefs, and oyster beds to be treated not as scenery, but as infrastructure. Living breakwaters that blunt waves while hosting fish and birds. Community leaders, especially in the Keys and Miami's immigrant neighborhoods, insist adaptation cannot just be for luxury condos. It must protect working families too. Already some projects are breaking ground. Pumps humming in Miami Beach, road elevations in the Keys, new designs for Tampa's surge gates. The Army Corps is pressing Congress to authorize its high-priority projects within the next 5 years, warning that delay will cost billions more. It's an all-hands, all-strategies race against time, a modern echo of post-Katrina levees in New Orleans or the Netherlands' legendary Delta Works. The clock ticks louder each hurricane season, and the question hangs in the humid air. Will Florida's defenses rise fast enough, or will the tide write its own timeline? Holding the line for people. At the heart of Florida's $10 billion gamble isn't just concrete, pumps, or marshes. It's the chance to keep people in their homes. Imagine Miami Beach retirees who can finally sip coffee without worrying that the next king tide will lap across their driveways, or fishermen in the Keys who won't wake up to find the only road off the island underwater. These aren't luxuries. They're the difference between staying rooted or becoming climate refugees in their own country. Analysts estimate that for every single dollar invested in resilience, Florida avoids $13 in disaster costs and economic collapse. That math is staggering. $10.8 billion invested to stormproof Miami today could save $26 billion in lost production and protect 184,000 jobs when the next monster hurricane comes calling. For working families, the plan doubles as a survival insurance policy. Soaring premiums have already turned homeownership into a high-stakes gamble. Some insurers fled the state altogether in 2023. resiliency projects promise to stabilize that spiral, keeping houses insurable and neighborhoods alive. For small businesses, from bait shops in the Keys to motels along Daytona Beach, the stakes are existential. Without roads, electricity, and safe infrastructure, livelihoods vanish overnight. In that light, the massive price tag becomes easier to justify. The real cost isn't the billions spent now, it's the trillions lost if entire counties are abandoned later. Nature's shield for Florida. Florida's ecosystems aren't just backdrops for postcards, they're the frontline soldiers in the climate war. Restoring wetlands under the Everglades Plan breathes life back into habitats that sustain rare creatures like the snail kite and the elusive Florida panther. These marshes are more than zoos without fences. They're living shock absorbers. Expanded mangrove forests don't just cradle manatees and fish nurseries. Their tangled roots break waves before they reach city streets, acting like nature's seawalls without a maintenance bill. Coastal marshes, too, become landing pads for migratory birds, while doubling as storm surge buffers. The benefits ripple directly into human lives. Healthy wetlands recharge the aquifers that supply drinking water for over 8 million residents in South Florida. They push back against saltwater intrusion, ensuring that when you twist the kitchen faucet in Fort Lauderdale, the glass in your hand isn't filled with brine. By letting rivers flow more naturally, the state is essentially hiring freshwater itself to be a bodyguard, keeping the ocean from sneaking inland. Without these green defenses, every storm leaves deeper scars, every drought runs harsher, and every family becomes more vulnerable. This isn't just conservation for the sake of beauty, it's survival by design. Protecting wildlife means protecting people, because the line between ecosystem and economy in Florida is thinner than a mangrove root in shifting sand. The question is whether humans can give nature enough room to fight for them before the sea takes it all back. Florida is the world's lab. What's happening in Florida isn't just a local fix, it's a global experiment. The state is trying to blend brute force engineering with nature's quiet resilience, and the world is taking notes. Look at the Netherlands, where 60% of the land lies flood-prone. They poured more than 5 billion euros into the Delta Works and now dedicate 1.25 billion euros every single year to keep water at bay. It's not a one-time splurge, it's a permanent line item, proof that survival requires endless upkeep. Florida is eyeing that model with envy, though. Whether its politics can stomach such perpetual spending is another story. Then there's Bangladesh, a country hammered by cyclones and monsoon floods. Over the past decades, it has spent more than $10 billion building mangrove buffers, raising villages, and weaving nature into its defenses. Like Florida, it learned the hard way that concrete alone can't hold back the tide. Today, those mangroves not only cradle fish and protect farmlands, but blunt waves before they devour coastal homes. Florida's $10 billion adaptation plan sits squarely between these two examples. High-tech levees on one hand, green guardians on the other. If it succeeds, it won't just save Miami condos or Key West cottages, it will hand the world a blueprint. From Louisiana's bayous to South Asia's delta plains, coastal regions are watching closely. The outcome could mark Florida as either the poster child of resilience, or the cautionary tale that shows what happens when you wait too long to move higher. What if it's not enough? The brutal truth is that Florida is gambling with no guarantee of a win. Even the most dazzling blueprints can be undone by Mother Nature's mood swings. Scientists warn that if sea level rise surges toward the high-end predictions, 5 to 7 feet by 2100, even $10 billion of interventions might buy little more than time. A seawall looks invincible until a Category 5 hurricane piles water high enough to overtop it. Elevated homes perched on stilts might stay dry, but what good is that when the surrounding neighborhoods become lakes and the grocery store is underwater? Florida's strategy amounts to engineering its way out of drowning, but the ocean doesn't respect deadlines or price tags. The scariest part isn't just the numbers, it's the visuals. Imagine Miami's skyline braced behind fortress walls, only for one crack to let the Atlantic gush through like a thief finding an unlocked window. Picture the Florida Keys dotted with raised houses, yet all the roads between them drowned, turning families into stranded islanders in their own neighborhoods. Uncertainty gnaws at every promise. What if Antarctica's ice sheets collapse faster? What if hurricanes leapfrog in intensity beyond what today's models predict? That's the haunting chorus behind every shovel of dirt turned. The plan is bold, yes, but boldness isn't the same as certainty. Push back on the ground. While engineers and politicians sketch grand visions, ordinary Floridians sometimes see only bulldozers in their driveways. In Miami Beach, one upscale neighborhood erupted in fury when crews came to raise their road. "Our block doesn't flood," residents insisted, arguing that the project would simply push water into their yards. Their bigger fear? Property values sinking faster than sea levels. Construction dust, noise, and mismatched driveways turned adaptation into a lifestyle nuisance, and locals weren't shy about voicing their rage at City Hall. Farther south in the Keys, pushback turned even harsher. When officials floated buyouts for repeatedly flooded homes, residents revolted. To them, selling meant surrendering not just property, but heritage. Salt-weathered cottages and family docks that carried generations of stories. No storm could wash away that emotional attachment, and they'd rather face water than exile. Developers add fuel to the fire, lobbying against stricter building codes or flood zone moratoriums. For them, stalled permits mean stalled profits, and their argument is simple. Keep building, keep tax dollars flowing. This tug of war between personal pride, community heritage, and economic interest creates a messy battlefield. While planners look 50 years ahead, many residents are focused on next year's mortgage or this month's rent. The tension isn't abstract. It's neighbors yelling at hearings, lawsuits flying, and projects stalled in political mud. Ballooning costs and politics. $10 billion is the glossy headline, but history shows mega projects rarely stay on budget. The Everglades restoration, once sold as an $8 billion fix, ballooned to over $23 billion by 2021, thanks to delays and scope creep. If this adaptation plan follows the same path, taxpayers may revolt and politicians may backpedal. Florida's survival hinges on steady federal and state support, yet politics is fickle. A quiet hurricane season might lull lawmakers into complacency, while one catastrophic storm could redirect funds elsewhere. The danger isn't just overspending, it's a half-built wall or half-finished pump system that leaves cities more exposed than if nothing had been built at all. Trade-offs nobody likes. Every defense comes with a price tag beyond dollars. Hard barriers like sea walls and surge gates threaten ecosystems that already teeter on the edge. Miami's proposed bay wall drew sharp criticism for potentially scarring scenic waterfronts and suffocating seagrass beds where fish spawn. Block a bay with steel, and you can warp tidal flows, erode beaches, even sour water quality. What saves one neighborhood could doom another, because water doesn't politely disappear. It shifts. The social trade-offs sting just as deeply. Will luxury condos in Miami's glittering core get priority over low-income neighborhoods perched on floodplains? Will rural lands be left to drown so cities can be saved? Each project carries zero-sum choices. Elevate one road, flood another, shield one coastline, expose a neighbor. These debates ignite public meetings, splitting communities along class, race, and geography. Florida isn't just battling water, it's battling the moral calculus of who deserves protection first. A future written in water. Florida's frantic race to solve its geography problem is more than a local drama. It's a preview of the world's coming attractions. If a wealthy American state requires a $10 billion war chest just to keep its toes dry, what chance do poorer nations have when the tide comes for them? This isn't just Miami's burden, it's Shanghai's, New York's, and Mumbai's too. The planet itself has become the courtroom, and humanity is on trial for how well we adapt. Will Florida's concrete walls and revived wetlands be enough to tip the scales? Or will Mother Nature slam the gavel with 7 feet of seawater? But here's the chilling twist. This isn't only their story. Look around your own town. Maybe you live near a river that quietly overflows each spring, or a coastline where storms seem a little meaner each year. Would you demand massive pumps, surge gates, and green infrastructure to save your home, or would you accept retreat as the only honest path? Florida's experiment drags those uncomfortable questions into your living room. Build higher and higher, or start packing for higher ground. Either way, the clock ticks and the water keeps climbing. So the final question lands squarely on you. You've seen the data, the scale, the audacity of Florida's gamble. But is it courage or hubris? Should the world follow Florida's blueprint or treat it as a cautionary tale carved in salt water? Don't just scroll past. Share this story, spark a debate, and weigh in. Would you spend billions to defend your own shoreline? Florida has placed its bet. Now the tide of history waits to reveal the outcome.
Thank you for watching today's video all the way through. If you found the content helpful, don't forget to click like and subscribe to stay updated to our latest daily videos. Now feel free to check out other feature videos currently shown on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.